In this series, we are creating a web application using Amazon Web Services AppSync. If you are unfamiliar with what AppSync does, I recommend you check the last episode up here. GraphQL is a language that we use in AppSync for creating an API. It's an open standard, so we could use any other backend than AppSync. AppSync is a set of tools to implement query caching in the client side and serverless data resolvers for the GraphQL queries in the server side or serverless side. That's enough abstract stuff. Let's see how this all connects in code. In the last episode, we created a create game mutation and a resolver for the mutation that puts an item to our DynamoDB table called game. The next step is getting that item from the table. So here is our query, get game, and resolver for the get game query. Now this is made using template get item by ID. Whoop. And save. Success. We were also using GraphQL Playground to test our queries. It seems like we have status code 401. Keys expire after 7 days. So we have to make a new API key and use that to authenticate. Opening the schema, there's get game query that returns type game. This is the get game query given an ID like this as an input, and it returns a game, and we can ask ID and name from the game. Query variable ID, and we are querying DynamoDB from game table. This ID. And it's so thirsty. Ooh, look, here we have an error. Type is ID, expected type ID explanation mark. This is mandatory. It's Counter-Strike sauce. Boom, headshot. To make an application, let's run create React app if-else branch. So create React app is the easiest and the coolest way to create a React app really fast. Some of you be wondering, why is Mikael such an AWS fanboy? I don't really know much about the competing products, but I've been working with AWS quite extensively recently, and I just like to share with you the cool stuff that I know. Let's go to the code. This is what the React Create app provided us with. In the src folder, we have the index.js. That's the first thing that is run. Let's add some imports. Next, we'll need to install them. This Apollo provider is from React Apollo, so it's a general library for using GraphQL in React. And this rehydrated just does some AppSync stuff. It does the caching and probably some lifecycle operations. And we'll need to configure the client, our AppSync client. AppSync URL here in our AppSync console. We can copy it from here. And our API key is also in our AppSync console. Authorization type is API key. And region is EU West 1, which is Ireland. Now let's try to run our web app. Apollo client was not passed a client instance, right? We need to give the client to Apollo. Compiling. How do I react? That's half of the victory. What is rendered here? To get started, edit app.js. Cool. Now instead of this, I want to render something. I want to render the game. For that, I need a component. Game.js. What is rendered for the game? Well, we'll give the game name as a property, or the game object as a property, and we'll get the name from there. This props game. So if there is a property game, we will get name from it. And render game and the name of the game. Here. And in app.js we need to import the game. And now it should compile. Here, game, but nothing as a name because we're not retrieving the name of the game yet. So we need a query for querying the game. Query get game query. We'll just give the query as a string here. So in the playground, we already made the query, and here we'll just use it. I also want to load the GraphQL for VS Code plugin, so I have syntax highlighting. And import there we have it. Other thing we need to import is some GraphQL stuff. So from React Apollo, the generic GraphQL library for React, we will use compose to fetch the data and give it to the game component. Game with data. Compose. Now we run the query, get game query. It needs variables because this is a query that takes the ID variable. This doesn't look very good. That's better. So the ID variable, game that we have created. Later on we'll make it fetch a list instead of just a single item. That's hard coded. For now, this will do. We'll just fetch the easiest thing. Fetch policy is cache and network. That means that the query is made to network, and when it gets a response, that response is cached and will survive in the browser. And when you next time come to the page or load the page, the cached response will be used. We are giving the game component to the compose. So the compose result is given the game as props, and in here we are expecting the game prop to come from this compose. So in the GraphQL we make a query, and when we get a response we can provide this game prop to the game component. Let's use Word result here so it's more clear. So from the query result we get data and get game. This is what we get from the server. We get game and inside it is ID and name. So get game will include the game's ID and name, and in game object we are taking the name. Let's try again. npm start work compile compiling. Can't resolve GraphQL tag. npm install GraphQL tag. npm start again. Type error. Oh, here's the problem. The GraphQL should be given all this stuff. So compose test GraphQL here as a single line. Now it's working. Of course we don't have the data yet here because we are not rendering the game with data. We have the game. I thought we would have more time today to show you how this application is really going to work, but apparently time flies really fast showing you people cool stuff. So today we saw how to make a GraphQL client using a React application, and we saw how to configure it to use GraphQL server. Next time we'll see how to properly launch the client and how it works. Cheers!